So, I want to tell you all about the Shroud of Turin and stuff. We got some other things to talk about first. I'm just going to plow right into it, okay? When you look at this screen right now, when you watch me, what do you see? Is it real? Is it not? I mean, you can tell it's a video, but for the sake of thought experiment here, let's assume it's a reality. But when you zoom in on my ugly mug, you can see pixels, okay? Now, imagine someone living in like the cyberspace or whatever of that 2D reality. They would be able to deduce the laws of gravity and what wind is and stuff. A leaf would flutter by in the video in the wind, and they can determine these laws of physics, if you will, in their planar existence. Okay? But when it comes to the pixels that make them up, they wouldn't be able to deduce. Though they could determine some laws of physics about how they're generated, they wouldn't be able to understand anything beyond that about how they were generated by a liquid crystal display or some other sort of pixel configuration in a whole separate reality. Okay? The pixels are the point at which the laws of, I mean, look, the laws in their reality they're the laws of thermodynamics. I mean, the gravity is still the same in the video. The way a leaf falls in the wind is the same in the video. The laws of thermodynamics there dissolve whenever you observe the pixels. Now, in our reality, we got voxels. Am I right? If I zoom in close enough, past the point of subatomic particles, we start to see quantum physics. It violates the laws of thermodynamics. But hang on. I mean, have you looked into chaos theory and stuff? Are you familiar with string theory? Do you understand how these things kind of contradict one another? Quantum field theory. I mean, there's just so many different ways of trying to explain it all away, really. But I mean, if you follow string theory, we know that we live in at least 6 spatial dimensions, okay? So we can only observe 3? How does this work? Are there 2 nested into 1? Because that's how a qubit works, right? We got a 10, 11, and a 0 and a 1 all at the same time. I don't want to get too carried away with that. Oh yeah. We have a lot to talk about. What the heck was I saying? So with quantum physics, stuff disappears, reappears, teleports, appears entangled, and this violates the laws of thermodynamics, quantum tunneling. How does stuff just go right through a quartz screen or whatever? Well, it's moving along spatial axes of which we do not have permission to observe. So look at watch, I forget the guy's name. It's not Andrew Wong, that's the producer guy, but his name's similar. There's a guy that uploaded a video called What VR Reveals About the Fourth Dimension. In this video, it teaches you all about the hypercube, the tesseract, and how it octisects a reality into 8 new cubes, and how these things can be skewed upon different temporal and spatial dimensions. Go check it out. And then watch another video called 4D Toy Box. You'll know it when you see it. All these multicolored toys. Can't miss it. Go watch those 2 videos. Get familiar with 2D Guy and the way that a ball moves through that plane of his existence. And then you'll really understand what I'm saying about how that's quantum physics right there. You see what I'm saying? A ball. So hopefully you can follow me. We have an x-axis, a y-axis, and we've got a dude that lives on that flat plane. And there's a 3D ping pong ball going through that reality next to him. What does he see? He sees nothing. Then he sees a point appear and grow and grow and grow and grow and grow all the way to this size, and then shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink. And what did he see? I mean, that looks like a ghost, doesn't it? It looks like an orb appearing, growing, and then disappearing right before your face in the same spot. But what actually happened is something in a spatial axis that he does not have access to. He can only observe those CAT scan slices of it, right? So that's what's happening to us. There's higher spatial dimensions. It's called the spirit realm. And up in the spirit realm, things can move in ways that they can't move down here. And down here, it looks like fairy dust to us. But quantum physics doesn't violate the laws of thermodynamics, because the laws of thermodynamics apply to all of reality, which contains spatial dimensions that we cannot access with whatever it is our body's operating on. Okay? Cool. All right. Donald Hoffman. Familiar with game theory at all, and how an economist developed it. We got another economist that developed a similar theory using something called fitness points. It helps us deduce with pretty simple, just arithmetic basically, that we have to be living in a simulation, if you will. All right. Now, taking everything into account that we just talked about, consider this. The YouTube channel Seeker, an educational science YouTube channel, put out a video titled What Cellular Life Actually Looks Like Under a Microscope. And in this video, they use some new Resolute technology that's able to observe cells moving in a piece of flesh without invading in any way. So normally, we take cells, we stain them with a pH stain, and squish them between two pieces of quartz and then observe them that way. And if you think about it, essentially what we've done is given it acidic or caustic sugars. Now, we consume food for what? For calories, joules, heat, electrostatic potential. Okay? That's really what chemistry is. You get it? So, think about Spirited Away in Pan's Labyrinth. When you go into these other realities, you eat the food there. And so we take a cell and we feed it. And so we've never observed cells under a microscope that we didn't force to be physically stuck here. Does that make sense? So when you watch this video, go watch the video, and you'll see a white blood cell, I think it is, moving around, and you can't pinpoint it. You can't find any any indication that it's there until it reaches out one of those amoeba-like tendrils and consumes a pathogen, taking in either a caustic or acidic sugar, you know, and yeah, diffusing that electrostatic potential. Then it becomes physical. We can observe it. Then it's a physically observable white blood cell. And it looks just like something out of Final Fantasy. It's like the... Go check it out. All the other cells are fed all the time by capillaries and stuff. White blood cells, maybe they get their food from consuming stuff around the body differently. Just a thought. Yeah. Let's think about Osmosis Jones. What if these cells are having a hallucination about their existence? And so previously I was thinking that maybe we're cells. Perhaps Jesus is a sperm cell. And I'll talk about that briefly, but remember what we were saying about the nucleotides. We're going to have to cut up everything about the theory we're about to present here. Say Jerusalem is the cervix, and there's all these cells. An Osmosis Jones type scenario, right? All these cells are running around thinking that they're humans, but actually they're cells. And here comes this guy, and he says, yo, I was sent from the Father. Well, in order for that scenario to be legitimate, the body that they're a part of would have to be a female because it's getting inseminated. And the sperm would have to be a male because it's one half of the zygote. It's not a gamete yet. It's only the masculine side. He appears as a male, and he would have to come from the father, who would have to be a male. Mother Nature would be the body that we're on. Okay? And if you look around, cancer, you know, look, I'm a heart cell, but I want to be a skin cell. I'm a mucous membrane cell, but I want to be a tooth cell. That's how you get a freaking teratoma with eyeballs, teeth, and hair growing inside of it, okay? Doesn't that look like the world that we live in a little bit? So, who knows? right? Um, and so then you think about the 144,000 and stuff and what that means. But understanding what we learned about the single nucleotide variants and there being 144,000 in each genome, let's reflect on this theory. A person isn't a cell. I don't know what a person is. We're not saying that you're a walking nucleotide, but something about your life affects that. You may be a walking nucleotide. I don't know. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff revealed about chemistry here because if what we're saying is real, there should be some really, really, really striking revelations about the chemistry, about atomic chemistry, right? A proton, a neutron, and the electron, and what that means for how simple things like trees grow. We should be able to deduce some absolutely astounding things if this theory is correct. It might be total hogwash. I don't know. But the reason I'm making these videos is because I've been thinking about it for a while, and it just keeps fitting better and better. So, check it out. There's multiplicity, multiverse, all this stuff, right? There's all these planets around us, and you are made up of the same thing. And each one of those things within you has a nucleus within it with the entire genome inside of it. It's just as above, so below, inside and out, fractal logarithmic involution. Now's a good time to talk about that. What is logarithmic involution? What are logarithms? Well, it's not that we stumbled across them by accident necessarily. It's just that we don't understand why they're important. We don't understand why logarithms are important for the same reason we don't understand like why prime numbers are important, okay? We just know that there's something fundamental about logarithms because they're what make fractals work. Okay. I think it's really simple. Non-scalar relativity, Laurent et al. I don't know if you've looked into this stuff at all, but you really, really should. Then you can question, look, let's just talk about it. Einstein's theories of relativity are only about relativity of acceleration, of velocity, okay? Follow me here. Hopefully you have a really good understanding about relativity. If you do, then you can understand what I just said. Now, relativity applies to other things. It doesn't just apply to scale of velocity, it also applies to scale of time, scale of size, right? Gravity is probably an artifact of size scaling. Just a hunch. But, yeah, relativity, right? I hope I mentioned what I was saying about a virtual particle. Like that's mind-blowing right there. Just so relativity. With relativity in mind, think about how a fractal is generated. A logarithm, logarithmic involution means taking your shirt off, turning it inside out, and putting it on upside down. It's a complete inversion. And so, man, this is going to be really hard to follow, but we're just going to jump into the really deep end, okay? Platonic metaphysics. You've heard Terrence Howard talk. First of all, the stuff that Terrence Howard has said with the math stuff, we got to talk about that. That is mind-blowing. It's exactly what I'm talking about with the logarithmic involution. There should be a point, a fulcrum, at which there is a center, and everything else around that follows chaos theory, and it's all predictable. All of it. Everything. Everything is predictable. I mean, it... yeah. What we're getting at here is the Essene mirrors. Everything is a reflection of the same drop in the puddle. I'm just going to keep ranting. I'm sorry. There's a lot of stuff bubbling up. The Big Bang Theory. As soon as it was thought of, I don't understand why this happens. we're going to go on a tangent about medicine here in just a second. I'm sorry, but it's a bubble that just popped. So, screw it. We went and got on boats, came to the New World, brought beef jerky with us, got scurvy. The witch doctors over here said, eat some pine needles, drink some pine needle tea, it'll get rid of that scurvy. Guys did it. Got rid of their scurvy. They went back. Nobody believed them. 249 years it took for people to finally understand whenever ascorbic acid was finally synthesized or isolated. Yep. Ascorbic meaning anti-scurvy, non-scurvy, absence of scurvy. The acid that causes absence of scurvy, in fact, is very prevalent in pine needles. 249 years it took. And then, like Einstein and relativity, if it wasn't for the atomic bomb, do you think that that would be popular conversation? Because if you're interested in that stuff, how do you not know that Niels Bohr says that he got the idea for the structure of the atom in a vision? How do you not know that Auguste Kekulé discovered the pi resonance of benzene through a vision he had of the Ouroboros? There's a couple different recordings of it, but one of the stories is that he had a vision of 6 monkeys chasing each other, and this made him think of the Ouroboros, right? The dragon eating its own tail, and this made him realize the pi resonance of benzene, which is something that we're going to talk about a whole bunch. In fact, let's talk about it now and use that to end this video. What I was saying before about totipotent cells being the only ones that can support life. What does that mean? How come if these other planets are cells in a body, just like the one that we're living on, if they were dead, then they should have gone through apoptosis, or if they're cancer cells, they wouldn't have, but either way, they should be getting eaten up and taken away. So they must be alive. Okay, so what's the difference? Why can't they support life, but this one does? I argue that we need to understand Roger Penrose, Stuart Hameroff, and the orchestrative objective reductive theory of consciousness. And once we have that under our belt, we can talk about resonance a little bit more, and I'll explain very technically the pi resonance of benzene using diagrams and stuff, exactly how it works. And we'll explain why OR is dead on. And then we'll have to revisit what I'm about to say. But I argue that the totipotent cells are the only ones where the pi resonance of benzene is able to take place. There's something else going on there. There's some other resonance steps. There's a step down, right? We have this big tower that is beaming out a signal that a quartz crystal can use to decrypt into a signal for you. The same way that your voice breaks a wine glass when you sing, or that wub wub happens in your car when the windows are rolled down at the same, or at these right places. That's resonance. That's how resonance works. We're going to talk about that a lot. But understanding that, there must be some step down resonant processes like with a 5G tower and the little setup nodes that enables consciousness to happen. And yeah. So structures that are physically congruent with microtubulin B. That's what we're looking for. Endless pine cones. The scales on a snake. The demiurge's body. Oh. Gosh, man. Yeah. Cells that can support life, which there must be a whole bunch more of in our universe, are the totipotent cells, cancer cells, reproductive cells, and stem cells. All have humans on them. Morphic resonance is legit. There's hundreds of millions of other planets with humans living on them right now. But this one's the fertilized egg, which makes it the capital of the universe as far as genealogy is concerned, because some of these other galaxies, some of these other civilizations, they have probably, if this is the truth, then they've likely figured it out as well. So they understand that they are genetic beings living a simulation, and that everything is made up of genetics. It's all crystalline towers that cast out signals, and they're pylons, right? I mean, that's what's going on. You are a pylon. Everything is so cool. Frequency. We need to talk about frequency and crystals and resonance and how it works. We need to talk about that dude with the lemon tree who gave the tithes. Have you seen that stuff? Or why we need to keep the Sabbath? Because that's establishing the same. Okay, listen. In your genome, at the end of a gene is 3 stop codons. A codon is a section with 3 nucleotides or base pairs, right? Boop, boop. It's literally a section of your DNA with 3 strips. That's a stop piece. So those little stop codons establish a crystal. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about why it's a crystal, what crystals are, why language is a crystal. We have a lot of cool stuff to talk about. Like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. We call it the octave, but it's really deceptive because it's do, do. But the last do is 1 octave higher or lower. So there's 7 different sounds, 7 different colors to the rainbow, 7 different chakras. 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5. That doesn't quite work. 0, 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5. 3, 6, 9. You into Nikola Tesla stuff at all? We have a lot to talk about. The Rama Dodecahedron, Randy Powell, Marco Rodin. If you don't like their stuff and you think that they're whack jobs, I get it, but you also got to realize if they were wrong, then how do we have solid state room temperature superconductors? How do we have the Bose-Einstein condensates before that? How do we have a qubit that's able to be a 0, a 1, a 10, and 11 at the same time? Because higher dimensional geometry is what generates our reality, and lower dimensional geometry. It's non-scalar relativity. It's all legit. Yeah. See you on the next one.